Welcome to the second episode of The Edge with me, Eagles Eric. And today we're going to be going over Kelee Ringo, who I think a lot of fans are excited about. They don't know if he's going to win the starting corner job. So I went back, watched every single snap he's had in the NFL, watched what he did back in Georgia, and I'm here to share what I've learned. So hopefully you guys are excited as I am. So, few programming notes before I get into it. Um, this was from yesterday. Everyone knows probably that I posted some clips that were not necessarily the best plays from CJ Gardner-Johnson, and he was like, "Hey, man, I make good plays too." So all the respect to him. Um, he helped the Eagles make it to a couple Super Bowls, but I kind of just alluded to why Vic Fangio was okay with getting rid of him, and I think people are going to be thrilled with Makuba. All right. So getting into it, before I get into the clips, I just want to give some interesting background info on Ringo. Um, he was one of the fastest corners in NFL history. Back in high school, he ran a 10.43 100-meter dash. So if people are familiar with track times, I mean, you're talking about near Olympic speed. He ran a 4.36 at the combine. He was measured over 21 miles per hour on GPS in his rookie year in game, and measured over 23 miles per hour in training at like the Ford Performance Institute, which is one of the fastest GPS recorded speeds ever. So this guy is one of the fastest players in the NFL. He was part of Bruce Feldman's Freaks list. If people are familiar, the fastest, biggest, strongest, most impressive athletes in college make it on this list. He has a track background, obviously. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He was actually rated the #1 cornerback in the nation. You know, some people say the star system means nothing. The Eagles seem to value it to some extent. We saw it in their pre-draft meeting, I believe before day 3, when mentioning Kyle McCord being a 5-star. And for people who don't know, these recruiting services, they're trying to make NFL projections. A 5-star doesn't mean college 5-star. It means we expect them to be a starter in the NFL. So he has a strong pedigree, and he actually played around the corner from me at Saguaro High School in Arizona. He was obsessed with Spider-Man growing up, so much so that he would scale archways in Tacoma, Washington, pretending he's Spider-Man. I think it's an incredible nickname for someone with his length and speed, be able to just, swat away passes. So if he plays good, earns the starting job, I think we could start calling him Spider-Man. Howie acknowledged during the draft press conference, this is back in 2023, that he'll have the chance to learn from veterans, Bradbury, Slay, and they really knew that it would take some time for him to develop, and now he's here. So he's going to be 23 years old in potentially his first year starting. So there are corners who were drafted this year who are older than him. So I don't think it's like a slow development by any means. He was just extremely young. And now juxtaposing that with these COVID year players, NIL players, and guys who are staying in college 5-6 years, it really kind of shows up even more when comparing his age to current draft prospects. All right, so now we're going to get straight into some clips. So what I attempted to do here was pick out, I think, roughly 15 clips that were most exemplary of what his strengths and weaknesses are. So you guys don't have to go and sit here and have me play 100 clips. So that's what we're going to do. So the first 3 are going to be from 2023. So obviously not the most contemporary information that we have about him. He's certainly developed since then, but I still think that data is worth looking at, especially when you then look at the 2024 tape and see like, oh, has he developed in certain areas? So hopefully this works seamlessly. Now these clips, they're just going to loop and I'm going to talk over them. So you're going to look to the top of the screen and we're just going to play this through. This is versus Darius Slayton. So, maybe if I can get this to loop. Sorry about that. Um, this clip is versus Darius Slayton. He has a really good release package. Um, Ringo does not do a good job of not opening up too early, and this is something I will be talking about a lot during this episode. Really, what you want to do in this type of coverage is kind of catch the receiver as they're coming off the line. I call it catching the release. Keeping him pinned to the sideline is super important on any kind of like vertical, especially one with an outside release. He does a tremendous job here, obviously. This makes it a very difficult throw. There's probably only a few guys in the NFL who could have a pinpoint pass on this. Certainly not anyone who's played for the Giants in recent memory. And he does a great job of getting hands on him without interfering. And he does look back at the last second. So I'll play this one more time. Stays in his hip pocket, pins him to the sideline, no interference, and that's a really good rep. And I think Slayton's one of the most underrated receivers throughout his career. Part of the reason is because he hasn't had many good quarterbacks or good offensive schemes. All right. Next clip. This is also 2023. And this is going to be to his side of the field. It's a cover 2 assignment. So you'll kind of see him get a little bit of depth off the line. On this play, he's facing Jalen Hyatt. Well, obviously, for people who follow the draft, this was a speed demon coming out of college. He has a mandatory outside release. Ringo makes it look like man coverage initially. If you see him square up here and those initial steps, if the quarterback was immediately reading like as an alert over there, he may need an extra second to realize, oh, this isn't man coverage. So it's something I like, guys who will have a little bit of disguise and niche, like at least at the release, mix that in there to throw off the quarterback's timing. And he shows really good eyes post snap here, triggering quickly to break up this pass to the tight end. Now, admittedly, the pass is late. And so, a better quarterback, better tight end probably would have completed this, but still for a minimal gain. So it's not a coverage that they'll be running a ton of, but we'll talk about it a little bit more later, that him kind of playing with eyes on the quarterback and coming up to make tackles or break up passes, that's something that I project him to be really good at. All right, this is the last clip from 2023. And this one's versus the Cowboys. He's up against Michael Gallup. And one thing, it's at the top of the screen. He is a flat-footed at the snap here, and this Gallup gets a step on him, and he beats him deep down the sideline. Press man coverage, obviously. It's something that Fangio doesn't run much of, but when they run split field coverage, there's a good chance that they're going to give him a decent, percentage of snaps in press man, because that's what he projects to be good at. I think he will see more of those snaps than Quinyon or Slay did last year. So on this play, he doesn't force Gallup close enough to the sideline, and his head is whipping all over the place. Comparing that to the earlier rep against Slayton, you can kind of see why he gets beat here. His eyes are glued to the receiver the whole time, which, if you're trailing the guy, that's going to happen, because then you're just trying to like time the catch and punch through the hands. But he turns over his wrong shoulder. So if you kind of see with Gallup's release how he's trying to keep some distance between him and the sideline, the cornerback should have that instinct that, maybe this throw is going deep and over the outside shoulder. So a little bit more better eye discipline here probably would have helped tremendously. And he's so intent on kind of focusing on the receiver that I think he kind of didn't show off his full recovery speed. Sometimes you kind of just like those first 10 yards when you're stacked, you just got to get back in the play. Forget everything else. Just put your head down and run as fast as you can. And then once you've gained a little ground, okay, now you can start to figure out like where's the receiver, where's the ball. So that concludes the 2023 clips. Kind of showed some good, some bad in terms of like deep coverage. Now, getting into 2024, this is a press man snap versus Tolbert. So we talked about it. He's probably going to get press man snaps if he does start. He did last year, even though he didn't have many reps. And you can see here his feet are way better on this snap than the previous. He gets good hands on him, and he keeps the hands on him the entire route. This is kind of a hidden, I guess, superpower for the best cornerbacks is they're touching the guy, especially obviously in man coverage. They're touching him throughout the duration of the route. It's just those guys like Joey Porter Jr. who get overzealous and they start to dislodge the receiver off of their line, and that's where the flags come in. So it's totally legal to just have your hand on the guy, stay attached for the entire play as long as you don't push him off of what he's trying to do. And it just allows you to run without having to be like super all your focus straight on the receiver. You can just feel where he's going. He does a really good job on this rep of doing that. So he doesn't get the flag, and they did get the interception on this play. So that's a really good rep. And it kind of, if you're Fangio, you're like, I'm not just going to pigeonhole him into playing 8-10 yards off because that's what my scheme demands. He's going to put the players in the best position to succeed for their skill set. So, if I don't think Adoree Jackson would get nearly the amount of press man snaps that Ringo would if he does win the camp battle. But at the end, I'll kind of talk about why I think Ringo is in line to win the job. All right, next snap. This one is in off coverage. He does a really good job of reading the release, which obviously, if you can see, there's none. It's just like a little fake bubble screen. And then he gets his eyes to his QB. So there's a lot of different types of coverage that they'll employ where maybe you're looking at the receiver, maybe you're looking at a different receiver who you're not over, or maybe you're looking at the quarterback. But I just think here Ringo does a good job of realizing that the screen isn't coming. Then he finds the running back in quite a bit of traffic, comes up in control, and then lays a big hit. Now, Fangio is not a guy who demands his outside corners to be part of run fits. You obviously want them to tackle. So it's kind of just gravy, especially if you can like come up and make them feel you with like a physical hit. There are other corners who would tippy toe here, hope someone else makes the tackle, or not even really see the guy within that traffic, or just be so focused in if the bubble screen's coming that they don't even try to make a play. So you can see Ringo's not scared, physical player, and we'll kind of look at more tackle attempts as we go through here. It's something that, I said in a previous video or episode 1 that he was a fairly good tackler, which I got some pushback about, saying he was closer to like phenomenal, but we'll see some reps that kind of prove why I said fairly good. Next, we're getting into this is versus the Packers, and he's nearly 10 yards off. This is at the top of the screen, 10 yards off, and he kind of does a quarter turn with his body, but he opens up way too early right there. So when he turns just call it 15 to 25 degrees and he's backpedaling, that's great. No problems whatsoever. It's when he turns where he's pretty much completely facing the sideline, but there was still 7 yards of space between him and the receiver. You go and watch Quinyon Mitchell, you'll never see that. So I'm not someone who's going to try to tell you this is exactly how the Christian Parker's teaching it, or how Fangio wants them to play this coverage. Obviously, We don't know that kind of stuff for sure. But I can say, like, I've watched 700 snaps from Quinion, similar coverages, similar depth, similar parts of the field. He's not doing that. That kind of indicates to me that it's not desired. And I actually followed up on this play, and I found from a source firsthand knowledge that he was coached up on this play. It was considered a negatively graded play from Ringo. Um, so little Easter egg there, but this was him just playing, opening up too early. It's something that is kind of a theme. We'll talk about as we get into some more clips. All right. Next. So one thing I want to talk about, his lateral agility is his weak spot. If you're a 6'2" athlete with Olympic speed, it makes sense that you're not going to be amazing laterally. Now this is a pick play, and you'll see Zay Flowers with running a whip route at the bottom here. So I'm not saying his lateral agility is why he got picked here, but I'm saying even without the pick, he would have gotten beat for sure. Now, Zay Flowers is a bad matchup for him, but there will be times when he gets, like, you can't always dictate your matchup, especially with the way Eagles play. They're not flipping their corner sides of the field. So teams are going to go out and they're going to say, hey, this guy has struggles moving side to side. Let's put a shifty guy out there and hope they run man coverage, and we've got potentially someone we can exploit. So I think that this does a good job of kind of showing you know how he can be a little bit stiff-hipped. Now here's the good news. He has extremely good recovery speed and like 92 percentile length. So even if he does get beat, as long as he takes a good angle, he can get back in the play and disrupt the pass. So him not panicking when he does get beat is going to be absolutely critical for his overall play. All right. Next, we have a blown play versus the Commanders. Everyone will remember this play. Bad substitution. They leave a guy wide open. I'm not blaming Ringo for this. May have been his fault, but that's not the point here. The point here is don't compound a mistake. He has a chance to tackle Zacchaeus, and he completely blows this tackle. This is a really bad tackle attempt. So I do think he is a fairly good tackler overall, but this is kind of one example of, like, he's got a guy who's not that much of a dynamic yak threat. He's trailing him. The other guy's slowing down, and then he's just completely going high and whiffing. So that was kind of a rough rep from him. All right. Next, we got, this is a really good example of his click and close ability. And for people who follow me on Twitter, they probably saw this in the intro post. For his size, his ability to plant and drive on underneath throws, to me, is borderline elite. Compared to what you saw at Georgia and even his rookie year, there was a lot fewer false steps. So this is, if you're going to drive on a play, you don't want to have the guy spin their wheels and chop like 3 or 4 times before they actually are able to close ground. Here, that first step that he plants, he's able to instantly drive. Now, once again, the Giants throw this a late fluttery ball, so it's like, it makes it seem like definitely he should have had a pick six here. But I'm just highlighting specifically his ability to drive quickly on this play. It also what makes his opening up prematurely, which is something that we'll highlight kind of as a theme in his play, very frustrating, especially when he's in off coverage. He could just keep backpedaling, stay fairly square to the receiver, and drive on anything underneath. And he's good enough. He's got this really good closing speed, and he's physical and not like tentative in making those tackles. So seed ground and then drive if you need to. I think that's the best of both worlds. He's got a quick trigger. He's got good eyes. He'll tackle in space. So there's no reason to get impatient and open up prematurely. So you can kind of see, this is a really good example of if he's playing 7 to 10 yards off, he can still backpedal, drive, and make plays. All right. And I mean, that's kind of like an MO of the Fangio defense in general, is like, especially for the outside corners, is keep everything underneath and then rally to the ball. All right, here's another example of a lazy tackle attempt against the Giants. Goes in straight up and down. It's right there. Straight up and down, doesn't wrap up, and they end up giving up 10 extra yards. It's vaguely reminiscent of the play against the Commanders because he's going straight up and down. That's why he doesn't make this tackle. So I think, there were so many people around him. Maybe he assumed like, oh, I've got 3 other guys who are going to bring him down. I'll kind of just hold him up. There's a lot of other things I would have liked to see there. Number 1, just going in low and wrapping up. Number 2, laying the boom. Or number 3, going in and trying to punch the ball out. It's one of the first things these guys are told is when there's a bunch of your teammates wrangling a guy, someone come in and punch the ball out. So yeah, that was just a really poor tackle attempt that came back to bite them. All right. Next thing we got, this is a press rep versus Chris Olave. So I consider this a premium rep. I mean, you're going against a great receiver, week 3, nobody's injured. So this is a pretty good example of like what he's like to see in live game action in the NFL. And he's got really good feet at the snap again, but he doesn't disrupt the release at all with his hands. The way he was playing this, he really does need to disrupt the release with his hands. Olave obviously shakes him here, and then he gets stacked. Ringo then panics and grabs his towel. This is a very obvious holding play if the refs are keying in on that. Now, like, the way this actually materialized is that didn't really impede Olave, but like most of the time, especially like if he's the targeted receiver, that kind of thing would get called. Olave is one of the best receivers at the line of scrimmage in the NFL. So probably, I don't know if necessarily I would want him to play so aggressive at the snap. I'd rather him try to catch that release or just press bail. Obviously, he's probably being told to play that style of coverage there, but against a receiver like Olave, it's going to put him into a compromising position, especially if you kind of see, if you take a look at the safety rotations here, CJ's walk down. I mean, they could just throw the go ball. That's probably a touchdown. So that's where it gets dicey. All right. Next play. This is like a weak rotation, cover 3. So you'll see the safety drop down and play in the seam there. Ringo's in off coverage. So he's supposed to match any vertical route from Olave. So I'll just let this play through. Once again, he opens up early, and this time in the wrong direction. So, okay, I don't want to do that. You have help from the sideline here, but no help in the middle. So him opening that direction and getting beat so cleanly to the inside is rough. Now, the reason he did it is because he has help in the middle, but spinning around and doing a 180, that's kind of rough. Especially because, if it's a contested catch deep down the sideline with his length and speed, that's such a better scenario than committing almost fully to some kind of outbreaker because you think that you have help inside and then getting dusted on this kind of skinny post. The next clip is a teach tape example from Quignon to kind of show you an example of what is good. So you'll see him at the top here. Now, Puka Nakua does make this catch, but the coverage is phenomenal. Now, the splits are different here. Admittedly, this isn't an apples to apples play, but you can kind of see the help to the middle is similar to what it was in the Ringo snap. And obviously, Quinyon doesn't turn his back to the middle of the field and get spun around here. Quinyon has much better lateral agility than Ringo, which to me tells me it's even more important for him to be patient and not open up, because if he opens up the wrong direction, it's over. All right. This one, this is another example of Quinyon. So this is versus Rashid Shaheed in cover 3. And it's absolutely phenomenal. This one, he even gives him that little corner look at the top, at the stem here. Shaheed fakes the corner. He never turns around because he knows he's got leverage, right? So he's playing outside leverage. So even if the guy fakes the corner, he doesn't need to spin around. He's already got leverage. He can just work anything to the inside from there. And he doesn't open up completely and too early, despite going against one of the fastest receivers in the NFL. So, I'm not expecting him to be as good as Quinyon, obviously, but this is kind of a good way of kind of juxtaposing techniques and, what could maybe mitigate some of his weaknesses here. All right. Next, this one I think is a great example showing his lateral agility weaknesses. It's exploited by Juwan Johnson here. He's a hybrid wide receiver tight end. So you're going to look to the bottom here, the guy who comes across. It looks like a cover 1 robber. So you have CJ dropping down in the middle of the field. So that's probably exacerbated how bad it looked, because Ringo is like, okay, well, I have CJ dropping in the middle. I can kind of cheat outside, which is fine. But he did way too much. And for someone who's like 230, 240 pounds to beat you that cleanly on an angle route is tough. So that's really the scenarios where it's like, okay, I have Ringo in man coverage against a guy with some quickness or lateral agility. Either I want him to play like probably press to kind of disrupt the timing of something like that. I mean, it's a lot harder to run like some kind of quick breaking route when your release is disrupted. But also just helping him. Fangio likes to run. Obviously, all defensive coordinators like to run man coverage kind of on, call it 3rd and 4 to 3rd and 7. But you get him matched up with guys like Zay Flowers or Juwan Johnson, apparently, and you might have issues. So that was kind of like 30 minutes of going through some clips on Ringo. So I'm going to go to the comments here. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to see what you got. Is the YouTube taken down? Well, hopefully everyone on Twitter can still see this. So, yeah, hopefully everyone on Twitter can still see this. YouTube is down. Yeah, that's crazy. So, I mean, this kind of came up with Brett Coleman, which is the fair use with these NFL clips. This is blatantly analysis, commentary, and education. So to me, that falls under fair use. They're short clips. That's not like I'm playing a game straight through. So I don't see why this would be taken down. So Jalen Ramsey is an interesting player. It's really a question of money and if he could get along with Fangio. If they did bring him in, it would just be a 1-year deal. And I think he's still really good. But I just have no idea about culture fit or if how much money the Dolphins would be willing to take. So if you are still able to watch this video, or if you're on Twitter, throw a comment in. Any questions about Ringo? In the meantime, I'll just kind of give my overall thoughts, which is I think Kelee Ringo will win the job. I think he has very defined strengths and weaknesses. He's an extremely good linear athlete. I think his technique is pretty solid. He showed that his feet, especially playing in press man, have improved over time. And his main bugaboo is lateral agility and opening up too early because of being impatient. So to me, those are correctable mistakes. By all accounts, Christian Parker is one of the best at his job, and I expect him to continue improving in those areas. And he's now 23 years old. So everything kind of, to me, the stars are aligning for this guy to take the starting job and be a pretty good corner. Now, he's going to be targeted a lot. If you just looking at the rest of the secondary, even injecting Campbell in there, I think he projects to be a better coverage player than Dean, who is the guy who's targeted quite often. So you're talking about a guy who may be top 10 in the NFL in targets against. So we're really going to get to see what he's made of. Now, he has special traits, which is there's hardly any corners with his size, speed, and physicality in the entire NFL. So you get up against the guys like DK Metcalf and the Mike Evans and those big alpha X receivers, and you have a guy who can match up extremely well against them in the red zone too. So I kind of like that about him. It's not necessarily something you could say about Isaiah Rodgers, for example. So it looks like there's some questions that just came in. And we'll probably do about 5 more minutes and get out of here. It's a shame that YouTube took it down, but we'll see if we can get it reposted with some kind of disclaimer about the fair use. What is your take on Mac McWilliams competing for the outside job? Do you think he has a chance to win it versus Ringo? No. I think he's a guy who is outside versatility in emergency situations only. So it's like nice to keep him on the 53 because you have that. But to me, his primary role is going to be as the backup nickel. But I think he actually could play. He's very versatile. I think he could actually play safety too. And for people familiar with the Fangio scheme, the role that the safety and nickel play on any given play can be quite similar. So if he can play 3 spots at a decent level, that's highly valuable. But no, I think he has almost no chance of beating out Ringo or Jackson. YouTube put me back up. Let's go, baby. What the hell? All right. Not a Ringo question. Do I think okay, another Mac McWilliams question. Backup slot. What if Howie traded for a Sauce Gardner? All right. I'll just let a few more people trickle in from YouTube because we're back up. Keep throwing in your questions. Do you guys think put Kelee in the chat if you think he'll win the job? Put Adoree in the chat if you think he'll win the job. I'm just curious just to get a quick poll going here and see what the fan base thinks. Interesting comment here. I think Ringo would be a high-level safety. So he did play some safety. There are snaps of him at safety going back to Georgia. Very few and far between, but it did pop up. And I agree with you. I think he would be a good safety. It safeties aren't asked to have duties on the field that often require a lateral agility. So right away, you're masking a major weakness of him. They do ask you to come upfield in run fits and lay the boom. He can do that. And he has a lot of range in the back. But here's the thing. Fangio, for whatever reason, likes kind of smaller safeties. I'd love if maybe someone has more insight about why, but you can just see throughout his coaching career, he's drafted smaller safeties. When there's been a safety battle, the smaller guys generally won the position battle. Justin Simmons is an anomaly in this. I don't think Ringo and Simmons compare at all, other than the height. But yeah, I actually do think he could play safety, but just probably not in the Fangio scheme as much. Who do I see winning the safety job? Makuba. I mean, second round pick. And Sidney Brown is what I've coined as Crash Bandicoot. I forgot the nickname for a second. Yeah. So he's just a volatile player who I talked about last year. He projects better as a dime back. Oh, something I forgot to post a little bit earlier that you guys may appreciate. So this is going back to the Philly film room from this time last year. This is a pretty fun thing. Let's say Slay is retiring or moving on. They can't re-sign Rodgers. Well, that vaults Ringo straight into a starting cornerback position. So you want to be able to develop this guy, get him meaningful snaps. He only played, 100-something snaps last year. So, yeah, he definitely needs more experience. I mean, it's pretty incredible that they entrusted him to follow Mike Evans at times, but it makes perfect sense. You look at this guy, he's basically like you create a corner in a lab to track these X receivers who are 6'3" and with speed. He's the right man to do it. Okay. So it's something I'm going to do from time to time, bring up kind of old takes that aged well. Probably do the opposite too, like terrible takes I made. But it was pretty cool. Like Slay moved on. They didn't re-sign Rodgers. Ringo's vaulted into the starting job. So to me, it's like it's destiny at this point. So pretty cool to look back at a year ago. All right, take some comments here. I want Ringo to win it. There has to be a better player out there for cheap. Samuel Jr. There's a reason he hasn't signed yet, and he's a young player. I don't think he's a good fit. He's more of a man coverage player. I don't necessarily think he's better than Ringo. Do I think Adoree Jackson can still play? Is he good depth? Absolutely. Phenomenal depth. You're talking about a guy with tons of starting experience who still has speed and is a overall solid, reliable corner. And it may be that the Eagles realize, like, wait a second, these Giants cast-offs, we put them in the Eagles system and they become superstars. So they reach into the well with Ojulari and Jackson after seeing what happened with Saquon. It wouldn't surprise me if he does play better than he did last year for the Giants. It's a little bit easier to really lock in when you're playing for a Super Bowl contender than a doormat. All right, Crash. Yeah, you like Crash Bandicoot? I was pretty proud of that nickname. Andrew Makuba season. So I'm hearing people started to call him Drew Makuba. So I don't know if he prefers to go by Drew. We'll see, but that's kind of a cool name. Do I think Ricks makes the team this year? maybe just because they don't have a lot of corners and he'll play special teams. But if you listen to Inside the Birds, Adam Kaplan said the coaching staff is really down on him. So it would just be a numbers game at this point. And so if it's a meritocracy, I would say no. But if it's just we don't have enough bodies, then yes. If it comes down to him or Mac McWilliams, it's going to be McWilliams all day and Sunday. Maddox being gone, yes, absolutely huge boost to the defense. It was kind of crazy. Like, yes, Cooper DeJean was one of the best nickels in the NFL, but it was a multiplicative effect because he replaced one of the worst nickels in the NFL. I didn't want to bring Maddox back last year. Not because he wasn't good when he was on the field, because he was so unreliable. So they made him take that pay cut, and then he actually stunk. So I know he did get signed. I'd be shocked if he ends up starting for wherever he went. I'm not quite sure. Throw it in the chat if you know where he went. I think Makuba is the better player. He already has the starting spot. What is your take on Sidney Brown? I kind of just went over it. Sidney Brown, to me, is more of like that dime linebacker who, he can play in the run fits. Not that teams are going to be throwing or running the ball when you're in dime very often. So that's why he probably hasn't gotten on the field. It's like, we don't think he's reliable enough to play as a post safety or as a starter. And when we want to put him on the field in dime packages, the other teams are throwing. So I don't know. It may just be a square peg in a round hole. Obviously, I love the fire he plays with, special teams enforcer. But it's possible he does kind of become the next Chris Maragos. 750 of you guys watching. That's pretty amazing. So if you're enjoying this, like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully come next week. Unless anything changes, it's going to be 7 Eastern on Thursdays. Comment here. In your opinion, do you think Ringo is a starting cornerback too? The little tape provided. Yeah, it's true. The sample size is still small. And you can see breadcrumbs of improvement throughout each year, whether it was from preseason to regular season, year 1 to year 2. And I don't see any reason for that to not continue. I think he's a player, this is speculative on my part, who stands to benefit from playing confident. When you're confident, you don't get impatient. You don't open up prematurely. And the coaching staff and other players like A.J. Brown continually try to talk him up. Why are they doing that? I think they realize, like, this guy, if he does play confident, he really could be good. I think he's a starting NFL corner. I think he's a cornerback too. So 100%. All right. Probably get like 1 or 2 more questions and then get out of here. I appreciate all of you guys from coming out. Hopefully you learned something. I'm sure there was a lot of comments in the beginning that I skipped over. Are we going to say moo when Makuba's on the field? Probably. All right. Last few questions. Would Ringo go to right cornerback where Quinn? No, I don't think so. I think they're going to keep Quinyon where he is. One of the best corners in the NFL on that side. A year of experience. Additional year. He played there pretty much exclusively in college too. Not exclusively. He did change more than he did in the NFL, but he has way more experience on that side of the field. Fangio doesn't even switch it up very much. So no, I think he will replace Slay. Ringo versus George Pickens, amazing matchup. They have a lot, both tall, linear athletes who can go up and high point the ball. It's a really good matchup. Pickens, for his size, has really good quickness and lateral agility. So I'll just be very specific here. Digs, slants, whip routes, comebacks to some extent, if in kind of more press coverage. Those are where he may get exploited. So that's where Pickens might have success. But like go balls, curls, and from off coverage, that kind of stuff, I think he'll be great in posts. I think he'll be great. What role do I envision for? Yeah, feel free to ask about other questions, guys. I'll actually take a few more if people are interested. What role do I envision for Ty Robinson, the Vanilla Gorilla? He's a versatile player. I think on early downs he could play inside, give Ojoma some breathers. So 5-man fronts. You're talking about the guy next to Jordan Davis, and then he could play outside on pass downs. He took a few edge reps that looked good in college. It's just unclear at which his playing weight will be. He was somewhere in the 305 to 310 range in his last year in college. He slimmed down to 288 for the combine and ran incredible times. So you may think, oh, it's just losing weight to run really good times and then he'll bulk back up again. Maybe, if that's the role they want him to. But maybe he unlocked this incredible athleticism at 290. Now, here's the thing. The caveat is the Eagles have so many of these smaller pass rushers already. They don't have a lot of big run stuffers. So that makes me think like maybe they'll want him to play at 310 and play inside more. But he definitely has a lot of versatility. And I think he'll garner a fair number of snaps. If I had to put a guess on it, I'd say 250. And that's, defensive snaps. What do I think will happen with Huff? So for people privy to the cap implications, if he gets moved after June 1st, they will be able to split the cap charge over 2 years instead of 1. And they're pretty tight for what they have left this year to absorb all that dead money. So it looks like maybe he will get moved. Now it's such a $17 million that another team has to absorb. So it might be a situation where you have to attach a pick, like a 4th or 5th rounder, just to get another team to take him off your hands, which is a pretty ugly scenario, but you do save money. So I think they'll try to trade him. And if they can't get anything, they might just rip the Band-Aid off and cut him. Or they just stick with him and hope he plays better because he was injured and he still is a pretty good designated pass rusher. The trick, though, is they have Ojulari. They have Uche. I mean, even Hunt to some extent. And Antoine Powell-Ryland, who I think will make the roster. So they have all these designated pass rushers. So at that point, you just have to say, like, he's got to be better than those guys to keep him. You can go back and watch the first episode. If you missed it, it will be weekly. Eagles Pinpole Network on YouTube. We're on Spotify or on Twitter. So you can go back and watch old episodes. Moo is so stupid. Don't make that popular. Yeah, I could leave that one behind. Ringo versus Pickens. Already, you must be nervous. No, I mean, if you watch this, I've talked pretty positively about Ringo. And I think he matches up fairly well against Pickens. So I'm not nervous. If Tyler Steen doesn't play well, who do you think will replace him? Miles Hinton, Drew Kendall? Well, how about Tyler Keegan? How about Kenyon Green? I think those guys are more in line to replace him at guard. Maybe even Kennard than Miles Hinton, to me, who they definitely want to make a tackle. Drew Kendall could play guard, but a first-year center from Boston College beating out like 4 other guys just seems unlikely to me, but I did like his tape. I'm not an offensive line guru, as I mentioned in previous videos, so take that for what it is. Would you like to see, would like to see Ty Robinson around 300? Yeah, that's splitting the difference. 310, he's playing 3 tech or inside. 290, he's playing 4i out to 7. So 300, maybe he can split the difference and play every alignment. At that point, I think it's just like figure out where he's going to be most effective rather than say, we desperately need a guy who could do this and then play that way. I'd rather do the reverse, which is where is he going to be best and then figure it out from there. Do you think Mac McWilliams and Adoree Jackson have skill sets more suited for a Fangio scheme than who? Than Ringo? Um, yeah, you could argue that Ringo is best suited for press man, which is a technique that Fangio eschews more than almost every other DC, whereas Williams and Adoree Jackson project better in off coverage. But I think Ringo will be good in off when he gets coached up anyway. Who will I be doing next? You guys tell me. Who would you like to see a film breakdown of? Some guys who garnered a lot of votes were Makuba. The other guys on Pinpole Network just did an amazing Jahad Campbell all 22 film review, so he's covered. And then there was one other player who got some votes, but Jalix Hunt. Thank you. So Jalix Hunt is another candidate, but if there's another name you're interested in, throw them out there. I'm happy to do a film breakdown on whoever you guys are most interested in. Isn't Huff, Pal Rylan, Nolan on the smaller side? We need Ty Robinson on the edge. Yeah, it's something I floated out there, which is like after people were saying, look at what Howie said, Jahad Campbell is going to play more edge. And then I kind of tongue-in-cheek said, if anyone's going to play edge, it's Ty Robinson. Like, I think he actually could do that. Obviously more of a pocket collapser, but his way of rushing is pretty unique. What I call it is a pinball style rush, where he'll just come in wherever there's a crease, he'll try to go into that crease and then just bounce off offensive linemen, hopefully into the quarterback or into the ball carrier. But I actually do like him on the edge, especially in run situations. So they line up in these penny fronts with 2 stand-up outside linebackers. Absolutely not. He would play inside in those situations. But when they play 4 men on the line with their 2 edges in 7 technique, which is outside of the tackles, I actually think Robinson could play that. Got people saying they want to see Jalix Hunt, Moro Ajoma. That would be a great one. Nolan Smith setting the edge. That was one of the things coming out of college about Nolan Smith. He was really good despite his weight. And that's what made him such a tantalizing prospect. And he had the speed. So I can't even think of a single player of Nolan Smith's stature to be able to set an edge like him. You have guys coming across the formation, tackles, who are trying to kick him out, and he'll just completely blow up those blocks. That's an extremely unique skill set. So, little T-Rex arms for an edge. I guess that's referring to Ty Robinson. Yeah. Having short arms is going to be a problem in finishing, and it's going to be a problem when you're trying to bat down passes or tackle someone in traffic. But the way he rushes, like as a pinball rusher, eventually his whole body's just plowing into the ball carrier. So it alleviates that concern to some extent. And his bend's incredible. So I think those mask his short arms to some extent. and it's not as big of a deal if he does play a lot of interior, which he projects to do that. All right, I'll take one more and then get out of here. So hopefully you guys are all enjoying it. There's a amazing turnout, almost 900 of you guys. Will next week, sneak peek, we will have a guest. It's not just going to be me up on my soapbox lecturing you. And we're going to talk about cap stuff. So if you have football related questions, I don't want a lot of people aren't interested in the cap. Still come. You'll be able to ask those football questions. But this is going to be like an intro. Like, how does the salary cap actually work? There's so much confusion about it. So that's a little sneak peek for next week. I might do a split episode where I do a film study for whoever you guys prefer to see, and then talk about salary cap with our special guest. So see if we'll get one more question and get out of here. Apologies for the audio listeners. This was a highly visual episode, so hopefully I described what was happening in enough detail to still understand it, but you're going to want to watch this on YouTube or back on Twitter if possible. Glad Dallas Goedert is back. Absolutely. I mean, what was their contingency plan? They maybe would have had to give up a really primo pick for Michael Mayer just as a desperation play. So I think it works out for everyone bringing him back. I'm very happy that Goddard's back. So, all right. I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. Write in the comments who you'd like to see a film breakdown. If it's not next week, if I decide I want to do a full salary cap video, it'll be the following week after that. But this was episode 2 of The Edge. Peace.